Congratulations! You've saved all this money for retirement. Now what? Hi, I'm Kristen Oakley, and joining me today is Michael Mare. He is the Executive Vice President of Nova Financial, and we know that a lot of folks are entering retirement with different buckets of money, and you might be confused on what to withdraw from when. Michael, I know this is something you work with folks extensively on. Talk a little bit about how folks should think through this question of when they should start withdrawing from their different retirement accounts, and maybe more importantly, which ones to withdraw from first.
Yes. And well, like so many questions in the world of finance and retirement, the answer is, well, it depends. Mm-hmm. But one of the reasons we are so determined to create those three buckets of money, or sometimes they're called pillars, but three kinds of money, the kinds of money being tax-free, tax-deferred, and taxable, is because then when we get into retirement, we have the tools we need to optimize our income and control our taxes. And so that's where the variables come in. When you say, well, which bucket should I use first? The great old answer, well, it depends, right?
Right.
So typically and historically, people have done a lot of savings in traditional 401ks. And so their money tends to be of that not yet tax status. That's the deferred.
The tax deferred bucket. Yeah.
Tax deferred bucket. A lot of people have most of their money there. When I start working with a client, we'll start to maybe do some conversions over to Roth so that we have some tax-free money. And then of course, there's things that we don't want to be taxed on at all, that are more liquid needs that we need the taxable bucket for. But in terms of the order of what we withdraw or take it from where we take the distributions, the great thing is if you get these buckets somewhat balanced is you can control your tax rate. In other words, everything coming out of the tax deferred is going to be taxed as income tax.
Right.
So you can take that up to a point. We figure out with your tax person where that point is so that you don't go up into higher brackets. And then we can start taking out of Roth, which is tax-free. So then you can start layering on top of the income without pushing yourself into higher income tax brackets. So that's why the distribution between those buckets is so important.
Well, and really, it probably depends on how much somebody has and then how many different things they have going on in those different buckets. If all things are created equal, though, what typically is the best course of action in terms of which account bucket to pull from first? Well,
again, if all things are created equal, I draw from the taxable up until a tax rate you're comfortable with, so that we always maintain money in the tax-free bucket to layer on top of the taxable money.
And let that grow as long as possible.
And let that grow as long as possible. So, you don't want to say, well, geez, let's take it from just the tax-free, because that's our tool to keep the tax rates down. Because if we exhaust that, then everything that comes out is going to be taxable from that tax-deferred account. And very, very few people have enough money in the taxable portion to live off of completely. Although I say very few, quite a few do actually with trusts and so forth, maybe inheritances and so forth. But your typical average person, most of it's in Roth or traditional IRA. But by taking out of a traditional, paying our income taxes up to a nominal level, maintaining money in the Roth so that we can then layer income on top of that's the strategy that optimizes both the income and the tax burden.
Well, and that's it through the Roth conversion that you're talking about, right?
Correct. Because a lot of the times, tax-deferred bucket's really big, tax-free is small. So before we get to the distribution point and are taking money out, we want to equalize those buckets a little bit.
And one last question. When is the best time for someone to consider these things like doing a Roth conversion? Is there a certain age range or time as they're leading up to retirement when they should look at this?
Generally, the sooner the better. When you do a Roth conversion, you pay taxes on it. If you do it when you're younger and earning less, you pay less tax because your income tax bracket is lower. So with most questions about retirement, the answer is going to be the sooner the better.
Yes.
the sooner we're planning, the better, so that we know that we're planning for today and we're planning for tomorrow.
Michael, thank you so much. Clearly, so much goes into building a solid withdrawal strategy for you and your retirement. And as we've said, so many of these questions, the answer is it depends, and it depends on your individual situation. And that's why there's no substitute for coming in and sitting down in the financial planning environment and seeing what would be right for you. To schedule your time to receive a complimentary financial plan from Michael and the team of Nova Financial, you can reach out by visiting novafinancialcolorado.com or call the number on your screen below.